Şu anda hani panik yapılacak bir durum var şu anda. Çünkü tezgahlar hakikaten boş. Çok az şey kalmış durumda. İnsanlar bir panikle.
This is where it all began. Authorities believe the outbreak of the coronavirus can be traced back to a seafood market in Wuhan. Its shutters have now come down, and the city has followed suit.
I would predict with Wuhan, you're about to see social reactions that are probably going to be disproportionate to the current threat, at least, and they're going to cause tremendous damage in much the same way that you see social reactions to these narratives swirling around vaccine hesitancy.
There's also the issue of timing. Right. I mean, this is happening on Friday is New Year's Eve for the Chinese. This next week is like the biggest traveling time of the year. So this could have happened in the middle of the year and it would have been different. But the timing of these things is often, and that's not predictable. Right. Also, you don't want to have outbreaks or introduce new vaccines around political elections. There are certain things that you want to try to keep things as least complicated as possible. In DRC, our challenge is also there's conflict, insecurity. We haven't eradicated polio because of conflict and security in the northwest frontier in Pakistan and in northeast the Boko Haram in Nigeria. It's no coincidence that they're harboring the remaining wild virus in the world. And by the way, polio is coming back. We've had the Philippines case. It's come up now in Malaysia. We had a case in Ukraine a few years ago. This is something we're like almost there. But it's really such a
outbreak which has killed 170 people so far and infected thousands across mainland China has now spread to every one of the country's 31 provinces.
Officials in China are dealing with a major health crisis at the worst possible time of year. In the coming days, hundreds of millions of people will travel for the Lunar New Year celebrations, the biggest annual human mass migration on the planet. With at least 7 major cities under a travel ban, officials have suspended public transport, outgoing flights have been cancelled, and train services shut down.
Growing concerns about the dangerous coronavirus from China. The number of cases has gone from a few dozen last week to nearly 300 now, and health officials have confirmed that the virus can spread from person to person.
Wuhan is on lockdown. It's a city of 11 million people and the epicenter of a deadly coronavirus outbreak. Chinese authorities have also sealed off other parts of surrounding Hubei province, all in the hope of preventing the virus from spreading further. The Washington Post spoke to 2 residents inside the city. They asked that we identify them using only their family names. Along with many residents, they chose to play it safe.
I'm Ramy Inocencio in Beijing. In the ground zero city of Wuhan, an army of excavators is in a frantic race to build a hospital in the next 10 days, with 1,000 beds for those sickened by the virus. As patients continue to pack hospitals, medical supplies are running low. Public transportation has been suspended. Toll plazas have become security checkpoints.
Fear seems infectious throughout the country, including the capital, Beijing.
If this were any other Chinese New Year, this park would be crowded with people celebrating the holiday. But coronavirus panic is keeping most people at home.
That includes tourists. Shanghai Disneyland has been shut down, parts of the Great Wall too. Officials took the extraordinary step of restricting travel in 11 cities, putting 35 million people on lockdown, almost the population.
We begin tonight with the growing concern as the toll from that deadly coronavirus now grows, spreading from Wuhan, China. And tonight, that
but we also have a much more questioning public. And I think that there's a lot of things that are converging right now that it's about complex threats. I mean, there's the whole digital revolution that has added a whole level of opportunity on the one hand, and yet threat. I mean, the Global Risk Report, the 2013 one, coined this term digital wildfires in a hyper-connected world. I've referred to that phrase a lot. And actually, I really like the parallel to wildfires, particularly right now when we look at what's happening in Australia. One of the things the physicists and engineers have said about trying to, analyze these patterns of these new fires, and what they've said is they're burning hotter, faster, and less predictably. And I couldn't think of a better metaphor than some of the diseases, but also what's happening in vaccine confidence and vaccine resistance. These connected networks of people who are from uncertain to resisting vaccines, not necessarily because of the vaccine, but because of what they represent. They're regulated and mediated by government. They're produced by big business. They're often mandated. They have chemicals in them they're not natural, as some of them say, when in fact, actually, I think we need a new brand for vaccine because they actually kickstart your natural immune system. Couldn't be better. And it's not like pulling up to a petrol pump and getting, a lot of chemicals in your arm. It's more like a mosquito bite, frankly, and it triggers your own system. So I think that we need to do much better now, before the next big outbreak, to get people's confidence back in vaccines. Because one, if we prevent a lot of these currently circulating diseases, we won't have to use antibiotics. It's one of our best feet forward in mitigating the risk of AMR when you've prevented it in the first place. So the more we can prevent these diseases, the more we can keep these strong antibiotics.
Declaring a public health emergency of international concern over the global outbreak of novel coronavirus. The main reason for this declaration is not because of what is happening in China, but because of what is happening in other countries.
There are now more confirmed cases of the new coronavirus outside China than in the country.
In a country where dissent is rarely tolerated, consider this: bold, blowing whistles to remember a whistleblower. Dr. Li Wenliang worked and died at this Wuhan hospital, a victim of the virus he dared to warn about before the government would.
My purpose is to make sure that all of this information is not lost or deleted.
因为我们是不知道官方什么时候会把什么帖子删掉的，所以我们都是在跟官方比速度。
我们要保存我们的个体的记忆也好，或者是一种集体的记忆也好。
Voices like these from Chinese citizens are very rare. People who are willing to speak out about the government's attempts to control news about the deadly coronavirus. They ask to remain anonymous because what they're doing could put them and their families at great risk. But these people are part of a new wave of Chinese citizens fighting to get the message out in a country that aggressively censors information.
我们有权利说话，然后我们也有权利记下来。
Accounts or messages like these calling for free speech are quickly scrubbed from the internet. Or videos like this, showing people frustrated about life under lockdown. Posted online one day, but gone the next. But the crisis over the coronavirus is changing the landscape, for now at least. Everyday citizens are preserving and reposting information the government doesn't want out there.
I started to collect hundreds and hundreds of screenshots. And then as the outbreak got really bad, I thought it would be important to keep these or to collect and systematically archive these information.
没有人关心我们平民老百姓的性命，有钱也买不到药，有钱也买不到病房。
Another taboo Chinese citizens are pushing back on? They're making open and widespread calls for freedom of speech. These were triggered by the death of Dr. Li Wenliang. He was an early whistleblower who warned about the virus and was punished by officials for speaking out. He died in early February from the coronavirus. Right after his death, the hashtag I Want Freedom of Speech started to trend on Weibo, a Chinese social media site. Then it was quickly censored.
Of viruses is an immediate emergence of a huge threat. This is more like a slow-moving tsunami, where human life, as we know it today, might not be the same kind of life we see just 30 years from now. The reason being, is if you think about safe childbirth, if you think about surgery, if you think about immunotherapy for cancer, and many of the medical interventions that makes our lives longer and more healthy, more productive, might no longer be possible if we do not invent and preserve new antibiotics.
Easy if you try.
No hell below us.
Above us only sky. Imagine all the people
living for today. Yeah.
Imagine there's no countries, yeah. It isn't hard to do.
Nothing to kill or die for.
And no religion too.
Imagine all the people living for today.
You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one.
I hope someday you will join us, and the world will live as one.
Imagine no possessions.
I wonder if you can. No need for greed and hunger. Brotherhood of man.
Sharing all the world. You. They may say that I'm a dreamer,
But I'm not the only one.
I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one.